Taibbi talks about how it's working, like how the censorship regime, he calls it the censorship industrial complex, where he says, look, when Twitter Files reporters were first given access to Twitter and the internal files last year, we first focused on the company, thinking that at times it was acting like a power above government. Twitter was. They said, but Twitter was actually more like a partner to government. They worked hand in hand. Along with other tech firms, Twitter had held regular industry meetings with the FBI, with DHS, developed a formal system for receiving thousands of content reports from every corner of government, HHS, Treasury, NSA, even local police, all trying to control the conversation on Twitter. And then goes on to say that, and by the way, in some of these cases, they weren't even claiming that misinformation was out there. They just didn't like what people were saying or the messaging. But the bulk of censorship requests, he writes, did not come from government directly. They came from state agencies like DHS, FBI, and so on, but also these NGOs that are not academic, he said, they turned out to be unexpectedly aggressive in trying to censor people. Who are these NGOs? What does it mean? Like, who are these groups? Well, he goes through it, and he says it's groups like the National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council's DFR Lab, Hamilton 68's creator, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, most of which nobody's ever heard of. Then he says the Aspen Institute, receives millions of dollars from both the State Department and other U.S. governments. It held a star-studded confab in Aspen, August 2021, where they all went. They were all there, figuring out how they could censor our speech. And the report ultimately produced was co-authored by somebody named Chris Krebs, who's the founder of DHS's cybersecurity whatever group, Katie Couric, Yoel Roth of Twitter. We've already seen him freaking out over things like January 6th and COVID. Wait for it, Stu. Everything comes full circle. Prince Harry. Prince Harry was a commissioner of this group. Prince Harry, who is on record as saying he thinks the First Amendment is, quote, bonkers, had his hand in putting, Twitter's hand over our mouths, over all of our mouths. There is no end to the nefariousness of this couple and where they use their limited powers to try to silence Americans. And then they go on, here he goes on to talk about how, hold on a second, I want to get the right quote. Twitter sometimes push back on people like Prince Harry and these others, telling them who is not a bot, what can be said and what cannot on things like vaccines or elections. But they say in general, they instantly defer, Twitter did, to sites like PolitiFact, which is funded by the very same names that fund those NGOs who are trying to silence us all in the first place. You see how it works? I got to say the Prince Harry thing was not expected, but everything else was.
I didn't see that one coming. No, it is amazing though. This is what happens. PolitiFact is a great example of this. They've always had left-wing funding pouring into to this organization, and they've been constantly fact-checking left-wing figures lightly and right-wing figures harshly. And they've been doing this forever. They can select which quotes they want to fact-check, whatever claim they want to push the narrative, and they do this all the time. And once they are elevated to this level, we've come in this country to a place where instead of thinking as individuals, we want to look to a constant authority figure. We want the groupthink thrust in our faces, or at least a lot of us do. This happened, of course, with COVID, where Anthony Fauci was coronated as king of all science, and we all had to look to Anthony Fauci to find out what the right answers were. And when people would come up with different answers or important questions, the person who was always there to answer was Anthony Fauci. And then these NGOs would be there to collect signatories to a letter that said, well, the lab leak is totally a conspiracy theory. And this would just go back and forth with journalists going to Fauci and his allies and NGOs that supported the same thing and asking them to fact check the people they were disagreeing with. Well, that's not how you get to an answer. It's certainly not how science works. And we've gone so far down this road now where I think just the credentialism, this circuitous form of credentialism that we're elevating in America is becoming really hurtful. It's ruining people's lives. And we are not getting those moments afterward where we all come together and say, wow, that was a mistake. These newspapers, these media companies would really help themselves to just come out and say, hey, the Hunter Biden laptop thing, we got that one wrong. Hey, the lab leak theory, that was wrong. Hey, masking kids outdoors, that one was wrong. We really screwed that up. Here's how we're going to fix this next time. Instead, they double and triple down, become more insular and more incestuous, and the cycle continues. And I think it's spinning out of control at this point.
Mm-hmm. And still want to cloak themselves in the authority of I will be the arbiter of what is and is not disinformation. One of these groups, Dave, an NGO, came out of Stanford, the Stanford Internet Observatory, SIO, whose election integrity partnership is among the most voluminous flaggers in the Twitter files, reports Taibbi. Stanford created this thing to try to police talk on the internet, in particular when it comes to elections, when it comes to COVID and so on. I actually had one of the officials from that group, her name is Renee DeRestra, on the show and asked her, what are you doing? How does it work? And most interestingly, do you have any conservatives whatsoever in your organization as you try to figure out what is disinformation and what is not? Here's just a little sample of that exchange I had with her.
What was happening during COVID, even prior to the rollout of the vaccines, was you had this novel disease. The health institutions were not producing good content. They didn't want to surface the most popular content because oftentimes that was not medically reliable or it was from anti-vaccine groups. What I'm not comfortable with is the idea that large accounts that get a lot of attention because they have a lot of followers that they've managed to accrue in a totally unrelated space should be the things that platforms surface just because they have a contrarian perspective about a disease.
Fauci and Collins actually did try to suppress the Great Barrington Declaration. The social media companies, the more they're on a side in making those decisions, the more aggravating they are, the more they infuriate people, the more people choose other forums. I don't know what the solution is, but I see the problem very clearly.
I listened to your interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but what I thought was very interesting about your interview with him was that you had the conversation, right? There was the dialogue there, but you also did the fact check right alongside it.
You have different ideologies on your team?
I would like us to have more conservatives. I think that this is the kind of constant chronic challenge of, of academia.
That woman right there, she's your daddy, Dave. That's your daddy. She's deciding what you get to talk about on the internet right now.
Quite literally. I have firsthand experience with this, and here's how it works, right? You have these independent fact-checking organizations that sort of hire themselves out to social media, and they say, they'll flag a story. They'll say, oh, well, this outlet's story is wrong. Then Twitter or Facebook will basically, reduce the visibility or ban it, which means that advertising revenues are reduced for that given story, right? Now, some places I write for, like Daily Mail and Fox News, they've got 8 gazillion lawyers, and this doesn't really affect them. Other places that I write for that are smaller, I mean, when I was at the Federalist, I think we had a staff of 14, 15. This can have a huge impact on basic revenue, not to mention that somebody then has to spend all day trying to refute the bogus fact check. And the end result is a chilling of speech. I have literally spoken to editors who told me, especially about COVID, masking, things like that. There's true, accurate stories that we didn't run because we knew if we ran it, the NewsGuard or one of these people were going to flag us. It was going to cost us money, and we were going to have to spend the whole day dealing with it. So unfortunately, these people are already winning. Now, my answer is I think these people need to be regulated. I can't just hang up a shingle and say I'm a stock analyst. Right. And then say, you should buy my buddy's company. No, there's rules. These people need rules. And there's no rules right now. And they're clearly just punishing conservative speech. I mean, that is literally their raison d'etre. This is all they exist to do.
Question. What's the secret to great skincare? Here's Mary and her husband from Faith, North Carolina, with the answer. She writes, quote, my husband and I both noticed that our skin is softer and smoother after using Genucel products faithfully. Our skin looks brighter, our wrinkles look softer and less noticeable, and the bags under my eyes are less visible. So happy. Best of all, they're easy to use and apply even for my husband, end quote. Genucel's most popular package, that's all their best stuff, has everything for all of your skincare needs. Wrinkles, dark spots, skin redness, sagging jawline, dark circles, even annoying bags and puffiness under your eyes. And with its immediate effects product, you will see results in 12 hours or less, guaranteed, or you'll get your money back. Stop waiting. Try Genucel's most popular package for 70% off at Genucel.com. And for a limited time, their new probiotic extract moisturizer is included for visibly clearer and younger looking skin, free. Go to Genucel.com/MK60, Genucel.com/MK60. And for a limited time, any subscription order includes a free beauty box and free concierge shipping. GENUCEL.com/MK60. That's Genucel.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.